He was one of the most notable members of the Philadelphia crime family. He would be the consigliere of the godfather Angelo Bruno. And unbeknownst to his boss, he would end the peaceful Bruno regime by ordering his murder over a dispute concerning the methamphetamine trade. This is the story of Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro. The beginning. Antonio Rocco Caponigro was born on January 22, 1912 in Chicago, Illinois, to Rocco Caponigro and Rosina Caponigro Verrazzi. He, his four siblings, and his parents moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and specifically South Philadelphia, in a predominant Italian neighborhood. His father, Rocco Caponigro, ran a successful fruit stand in the Italian market on South 9th Street Curb Market. Bananas would be a staple and hot commodity in the fruit market, and according to legend, this is where Antonio Caponigro earned his moniker, Tony Bananas. Another legend said he would earn the nickname because he was known for having a temper and went bananas that can be used as an epithet describing someone being crazy. The nickname Tony Bananas would follow him through the media, such as newspaper, radio, and television. Young adulthood. The Caponigro family would then relocate to New Jersey. He conducted most of his criminal operations in Ironbound, a neighborhood in Newark. Entries such as car theft, burglary, robbery, bookmaking, and suspected murder date back to 1928 in Caponigro's police record. For a time, he was suspected of financing the illegal manufacture of alcohol in the New Jersey area, but this was never proven. In 1943, he later married a Scottish-Irish-Canadian woman named Kathleen Ann Cox. They had a son and 3 daughters. The Made Man. Caponigro operated in the Ironbound neighborhood of Newark, New Jersey. During the 1950s, Caponigro will be inducted to Cosa Nostra as a made member of the Philadelphia crime family by Joseph Ida, who was the reigning crime boss at that time. As a made member of the Philadelphia crime family in the 1950s and 60s, he became a recognized crime figure after being identified by a mobster turned government informant, Joseph Falagi, in 1963. During that time, Antonio Caponigro, he served under Capo Riccardo Biondi. Under Biondi, Tony Bananas would run numerous rackets in the New Jersey section on behalf of Philadelphia crime family. He would develop gambling and number rackets in New Jersey while also running a prostitution ring simultaneously. These types of vices would help him flourish to not only the average working day citizen, but also politicians and other influential figures. In an FBI report stating in February 1957, an informant advised that Caponigro operated an extortion racket in which he used to attract youthful prostitutes. The informant also stated that the ladies will work under him in a prominent or wealthy individuals in a compromising situation, and unbeknownst to them, it would be documented through audio, photographs, and electronic devices. The informant exposed Caponigro for having telephones and microphones located in the walls or throughout various locations in the properties he owned or did not own to use for blackmail. One of them will be at the Garden State Motor Lounge on Route 46 in Pine Brook, New Jersey, and an apartment building 32 Southmont Avenue in East Orange, New Jersey. Caponigro was the son of wealthy banana merchants amongst his peers. He would later own and manage a stand at the Italian market like his father. He lived in Short Hills, New Jersey with his wife, Kathleen. He also had a half-sister, Susan, who had a daughter at a wet lab by the name of Teresa. Susan was married to Alfred Solano, but died from cancer before the double murders, which we will discuss later on in this video. The informant also made claims that while prostitution activities was undergoing and grew rapidly in the tri-state area between New York City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Newark, New Jersey, where Caponigro allegedly recruited them for work. This same informant was not only certain if Caponigro was listed as the owner of the Garden State Motor Lounge, and believes Tony Bananas hired a supervisor to watch the restaurant as Caponigro was behind the restaurant operations. The exposure. According to the Courier Post that we will have on display on the screen, Caponigro first gained public attention in 1955, in which we learned that he loaned boxer Joey Giardella $200 to pay off a $1,000 dollar bet on a Brooklyn Dodgers baseball game. Organized crime experts claim that Caponigro was involved in fixing fights, a practice that was common for mobsters that has been doing since the Prohibition era. According to the Courier Post, dated on April 30th, 1980, Wednesday, page 15, sources also said that Caponigro ran illegal gambling operations in New Jersey in which were protected by the corrupt police and politicians. His activities attracted the attention of New Jersey State's Commission of Investigation. He avoided the SCI subpoenas for several years by fleeing to Florida, from where he continued to oversee his gambling operations. In 1972, a federal grand jury in Newark, New Jersey, issued a subpoena for Caponigro, but he continued to elude the FBI in New Jersey, Florida, and New York. The FBI came close to catching him in September of 1974 in an elaborate wedding reception for his daughter at New York Plaza Hotel, but to avoid creating a disturbance, the FBI didn't arrest him. On New Year's Eve of 1975, an undercover FBI agent called Caponigro's house in Short Hills, Essex County, and speaking Italian, warned Caponigro's wife that the FBI was on his way to arrest her husband. Caponigro boarded from his house and raced off in his car into an FBI trap. It says his husband, but I believe they meant to put her. The businessman. Now, back in 1957, there are several reports that Caponigro allegedly owned several restaurants, establishments that made him lucrative in the criminal underworld. Here are the fine businesses that he allegedly owned. Dot Cocktails on Lounge on North 10th Street in Newark, Orange, New Jersey. In North Center in Orange, New Jersey, that you can see here in this picture. Dot's Kitchen, South Orange Avenue, Florham Park, New Jersey. The Highway Bar and MacArthur Highway and Bridge Street, located in Newark, New Jersey. Mario's Restaurant at 35 Main Street, Millbourne, New Jersey. The Mid Tavern at 618 South Orange Avenue, Newark, New Jersey. Pierre's Cocktail Lounge, 24 Lincoln East, Orange, New Jersey, and Suburban Cocktail Lounge, 64 Brick Church Plaza in East Orange, New Jersey. Therefore, the allegations of him owning these properties swarmed in the media, convincing the public on how wealthy Caponigro was. In 1963, his informant will be identified when testified to Congress. This man will be Joseph Joe Valachi. Tony Bananas and many other mafia members would be disclosed in Valachi's written and spoken testimony. This exposure will cause a ripple effect in the criminal underworld. If Tony Bananas did not have a bullseye on his back prior, he knew he would have one now after Valachi's testimony. Rise to power. Despite being a year younger than Angelo Bruno, several reports indicate that it was Johnny Key Simone to introduce Angelo Bruno to the criminal underworld. Bruno owned his own grocery store in the Passyunk Square in South Philadelphia. Meanwhile, Simone would start his career as a bootlegger during the Great Depression in his youthful years. He would be arrested for several times for assault and robbery after the Great Depression years. There have been allegations that Johnny Keys would work for a vending company, and upon his introduction into the Philadelphia crime family, he would start as a hitter. According to former Gambino underboss Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano, Johnny Key Simone taken over 50 murders in his lifetime and labeled him a hitman's hitman. During the 1950s, Simone and Bruno will be rising stars in the Philadelphia criminal underworld. Bruno met the reigning godfather Salvatore Sabella and will work in the criminal rackets under Sabella's protection. Simone ran a profitable bookmaking operation. In the year of 1950, Angelo Bruno sent Johnny Keys Simone to Trenton, New Jersey to work with Charles Pinky Costello, who was a Philly wise guy and was considered the boss of the Trenton number and gambling. Also, Costello is Angelo Bruno's cousin. He was specifically his first cousin. Simone would make Philadelphia's crime family robust through the number operation in Trenton. In 1959, Angelo Bruno would become godfather of Philadelphia, and he promoted Johnny Keys Simone to be leader and have taken full control over Trenton's numbers racket. The 1950s was the decade for Simone and Bruno to make their names in the criminal underworld. The following decades were a testament to how long they were going to maintain them. In the 1960s, Johnny Keys Simone became the captain in Trenton-based operations. He would make the criminal syndicate very wealthy and grew a large fortune running in Trenton's numbers of operations. His numbers record was very robust that he was reported to be a multi-millionaire as one of the most affluent figures in the Philadelphia crime family. During this year in New Jersey, he would build a working relationship with another New Jersey-based Philly mobster. He was Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro. Tony Bananas also controlled the family's gambling and bookmaking and loan sharking rackets in Newark, New Jersey. Caponigro will be the future consigliere of Angelo Bruno after Justa Rognetta died in 1977. Angelo Bruno himself would appoint Tony Bananas to be the consular of the crime family. This decision will be a fatal mistake. During this time, Angelo Bruno and Johnny Keys Simone's relationship dwindled, and the seeds of treachery were planted within the family. The plan. Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro, Johnny Keys Simone, and many others in the Philadelphia crime family were becoming frustrated with the power of Angelo Bruno. When gambling became legalized, Bruno did not take advantage of the commercialism exclusively when he was still loyal to the Gambino crime family, despite the passing after his friend Carlo Gambino passed away. On October 15, 1976, Carlo Gambino died of a heart attack. With Gambino gone, Bruno lost his most important ally in the underworld. Carlo Gambino, the boss of bosses, was so powerful that Angelo Bruno was untouchable. However, in the wake of Carlo Gambino's death, Bruno was exposed. Most of Bruno's subordinates felt that they were missing out on money because of Bruno's old-fashioned and content ways. Unbeknownst to Bruno, members of his own crime family were plotting against him due to these reasons. One of them was casino, gambling, we mentioned. Also, Angelo Bruno would not allow his own crime family members to get involved in the robust narcotics market. However, members of the Gambino crime family were into the drug trade and exchanged Bruno money that many people felt was drug money, and he would be a hypocrite towards his own community. Therefore, Johnny Keys Simone will collaborate with Caponigro to overthrow Angelo Bruno. In 1980, the 1970s were over, and the decade were unleashed a whole new rampage of violence and create a civil war within the crime family of Philadelphia, started with Angelo Bruno. Caponigro had been lining up to support in Philadelphia for a palace coup. He enlisted Frank Sedone, the Barracuda, Johnny Keys Simone, and Alfred Salerno, Caponigro's brother-in-law, as willing participants in the conspiracy. Sedone, a longtime Bruno family soldier and one of the biggest loan sharks in Philadelphia, was to be the underboss of Caponigro's rebel regime. Behind Bruno's back and wishes, Caponigro decided to take business, and within another crime family was the Genovese. He approached the Genovese family boss Frank Thierry in order to seek the commission's permission to whack Angelo Bruno to take over the crime family. Thierry, sensing an opportunity to take over Caponigro's New Jersey gambling operation, set up an operation in Atlantic City. He lied to Caponigro and told him that he had the commission's support. Coup de grace. March 21st, 1980, Johnny Keys Simone and Frank the Barracuda Sedone met with John Stanfa, also known as Giovanni's John Stanfa, in New York City. During this time, John Stanfa was a young Sicilian wise guy who Simone and Sedone recruited to replace regular driver Raymond Long John Mortorano and Mario Sonny Riccobini. The plan of a coup d'etat was set in motion. Angelo Bruno would have his last meal at Cousin's Little Italy with some of his friends. Many underworld observers believe Frank Sedone marked Angelo Bruno by giving him the symbolic kiss of death after he kissed Bruno's cheek before Bruno left the restaurant. Angelo Bruno and John Stafford left the restaurant and prepared for Bruno's last ride. It was a dark, rainy night as John Stafford was driving Angelo Bruno to his home at 934 Snyder Avenue in South Philadelphia. Before he was driven home, he and John Stafford stopped at Broad and Snyder to get a newspaper, and Bruno would never expect anything unusual. The temperature was dropping and rain grew denser around 9:30 p.m. John Stafford parks the car in the cold in front of Angelo Bruno's house as it grew colder. Two men behind the car would step out of the shadows. Angelo Bruno's window was lowered as he flicked his cigarette, and it would be the last thing he would ever do. A shooter loaded double-barrel shotgun and blasted Bruno in the back of his head by pulling both triggers simultaneously. The shooting would instantly take the life of the Godfather of Philadelphia. John Stafford would be wounded from the pellets from the gunshot blast. The shooter and his accomplice fled the crime scene. John Stafford will also do the same, leaving Angelo Bruno's corpse alone in the car. His mouth would gape wide open extremely as if he was screaming for help. The gruesome image of him became an iconic mob hit, especially since he was the Godfather of Philadelphia. The rain would stop and the neighborhood would wake from the gunshot blast noise, creating a pandemonium in South Philadelphia. Therefore, this night became a media circus, as you can see here.
Yeah, I can see it.
There it is. There it is. Got it, move?
Yeah, we've covered it.
There you go. Come on, let's move. Moving. Come on. Right on. Go ahead.
We got it.
Come on, Bobby. Bobby, come on.
Hey, Charlie.
Excuse me, sir.
Then we go to Cusses, man.
Hey, it's a good fight, too.
What?
This Haysom, I lost the husband. I'm going to tell the police made a circus of this. I think it's a shame. 2 hours.
That's got the clear fight. Push your under.
Where's Bruno's candy store, bro?
I have no idea.
One of these places was his, right?
I think.
The hit on Angelo Bruno would be a success, especially to those who are involved in the conspiracy. That includes Johnny Keys Simone, Frank the Barracuda Sedone, Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro, Alfredo Solano, and possibly more. According to former Philadelphia crime underboss Philip Crazy Phil Leonetti's, he wrote a book called Mafia Prince, and he specifically labeled Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro to be the shooter behind Angelo Bruno's demise. Also, his co-author Scott Bernstein also believed Antonio Bananas was the shooter. And from our own exclusive archives, George Anastasia was not surprised to see will be the man to pull the trigger against his own boss, Angelo Bruno. Gotcha. And then I keep hearing, because I don't hear disputes about Antonio Bananas Caponigro being his executioner, because I think Philip Leonetti said that in Mafia Prince, the fall of La Cosa Nostra. But I'm just curious, like, has there ever been like case closes for some of these members, or is always?
I mean, what happened was, I think Caponigro, in fact, he might have even been the shooter that night. Or some people say he was the actual gunman with the shotgun. What happened in the aftermath of the Bruno murder was those guys turned up dead. Caponigro turned up dead. Salerno turned up dead. Frankie Sedone turned up dead. So, you know, the Mafia Commission was carrying out street level justice. Killing a boss was a major offense, and there always was a price to pay. And it wasn't, if you think about it, what it was the hierarchy of organized crime looking out for one another and watching their back. You don't want to have a boss killed and the guys that do it walk away, because you may be the next boss that's killed. So there had to be retribution, and that certainly happened quickly in the Bruno assassination. Those guys all turned up dead, with the exception of John Stamper, who went on the run and later surfaced as
The demise of Angelo Bruno was a success for Caponigro, Salerno, Sindone, and Simone. However, the outcome would not go in their favor. The downfall. March 22nd, 1980. The next day, Simone was reported to visit John Stamper in the hospital. The hospital staff did not report to what words the men exchanged, since it was in Italian. However, many historians and criminal world observers assumed that Simone warned Stamper to stay out of sight in case of any relations of the demise of Bruno. A week later, Caponigro sent Simone and Sindone to meet with the commission on his behalf. During the meeting, the commission wanted Caponigro to meet with them in person. Caponigro would assume that he would be crowned to be the new boss of the Philadelphia crime family, and that his supporters were not of any danger. He was wrong. He thought he received permission from the Genovese front boss, Frank Funzi Thierry. However, Thierry was not the boss, as Caponigro and the media believed it was. Vincent the Chin Gigante was the real boss. This maneuver was used to confuse law enforcement and any other mafia conspirators. The demise. April 18, 1980. Caponigro and his brother-in-law, Alfred Salerno, would agree to the meeting and would arrive to New York for the meeting. Caponigro was summoned to the basement of a triangular social club in Greenwich Village, Manhattan. In the meeting, there was a panel in a darkly lit room. There was Frank Funzi Thierry, Anthony Fat Tony Salerno, Luis Bobby Manna, and Vincent the Chin Gigante inside an empty club. Double-crossed. As Caponigro believed he was going to be crowned the new boss, he looked at Frank Funzi Thierry and he met with Vincent the Chin Gigante. Vincent the Chin Gigante had told Caponigro, "We're here to ask who gave you permission to whack out your boss, Angelo Bruno." Caponigro stumbled and was confused. He looked at Frank Funzi Thierry, and Thierry had looked at Caponigro very stone-faced. Caponigro had told the Chin, "Funzi told me the permission." Vincent the Chin Gigante's face looked puzzled. He asked Frank, "What is he talking about?" Frank Funzi Thierry had stated, "I told you to straighten out, not to kill him." And this is when Caponigro was shocked and knew that this was not looking good for him. He realized that he'd been double-crossed, just like he double-crossed Angelo Bruno, and now he knew his fate was in stake. Therefore, unbeknownst to Caponigro, in the darkly lit room, there were Genovese soldiers ready to take out Caponigro himself, as he knew he pleaded for his life, and unfortunately, this would be the last day Caponigro would see the light of day. In this video, you see the picture of Joseph Mad Dog Sullivan. This mafia hitman is the one that claimed that he's the one that shot and took the life of Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro. We would like to play you the audio and the video, however, due to the copyright of A&E, we are not allowed to do so. In the meantime, you can see the other different shorts from other different YouTubers, but we'll just show you part of these screenshots and just tell you the story of Joseph McDullivan said. He said that he was ordered to peel the big banana, in which he was referring to Antonio Tony Bananas Caponigro. He said that once he heard that Caponigro was sat down and he was notified from the Genovese hit squad to step out of the shadows, he just point blank shot him at close range once Tony Bananas lunged at him to defend himself. He said that Tony Bananas did fight for his life, but just could not stop from the bullets penetrating him. He said that Tony Bananas died making a hissing sound, like a rattle of death. Caponigro was brutally stabbed, shot, and money will be stuffed in all orifices after the brutal demise of Antonio Bananas Caponigro. Along with them, Genovese soldier would locate his brother Alfred Salerno either in a car or a restaurant. Several different reports have either stated that both will be beaten and share the same brutal fate as well. Somewhere in the Bronx, Antonio Bananas Caponigro will be found in the trunk of a car, and then when police discover his body brutally beaten and money stuffed into all orifices, they knew this would be a sign of greed from the mafia message.
Law enforcement officials today were still trying to determine the motives for the gangland-style slaying of two Essex County mob figures. The bullet-riddled bodies of 67-year-old Antonio "Tony Bananas" Caponigro of Short Hills and Alfred Salerno, 64, of Verona, were both found April 18th in the South Bronx, but authorities only identified their bodies yesterday after fingerprint analysis. Caponigro was thought to be the head of gambling and loan sharking operations along the North Jersey waterfront. His body was found in a trunk of a stolen car, riddled with bullets and stab wounds and littered with $20 bills. Salerno, his hands and feet tied behind him, was shot several times. His body was found in another section of the South Bronx.
Antonio "Tony Banana" Caponigro's body was recovered after his brutal slaying. His body will later be transferred for burial at Hollywood Memorial Park, which is located in the Union County of New Jersey. He is placed in a mausoleum, as we will show you in the video, that's in this beautiful rural area. And as you can see, he is also located with his whole family. Buried beside him is his wife, Kathleen, and their daughter, Tony Susan. This was the end of Johnny Keys Simone. The aftermath. Simone's death would send shockwaves into the criminal underworld and news media reports. Here are the news footages.
6 days after Bruno's murder, there was a meeting in North Jersey involving John Stanfa, Albert Salerno, John Sindone, John Simone, Phil Testa, and Antonio Caponigro. 6 weeks later, Caponigro and his brother-in-law, Albert Salerno, were found in Brooklyn in the trunk of a car. On September 20th, John Simone was found shot to death in a vacant field on Staten Island. His car was found in Yardley, Bucks County. On October 30th, the body of John Sindone, Angelo Bruno's loan sharking chief, was found in a plastic bag behind a shopping center at 20th and Oregon in South Philadelphia. On February 20th of this year, the grand jury indictments were handed up against Phil "Chicken Man" Testa and 9 other alleged mob members. They were charged with racketeering, loan sharking, mail fraud, and illegal gambling. U.S. Attorney Peter Vira said at the time the indictments would seriously hurt mob activity in Philadelphia. But 10 days ago, law enforcement sources told Action News that other mob families had decided that the indicted men were expendable, and there was a chance they would exchange information if the feds would go easy on them. Therefore, the execution of Testa may have been ordered simply as a practical matter. This is Joe Sanchez, Channel 6 Action News. Days after Bruno's death, several second-level lieutenants gathered to try to divide up the turf left behind. But it wasn't too long after that when more mob-style hits began taking their toll on the feuding factions. Antonio Caponigro and Albert Salerno were both found dead. Their bodies had been stabbed, shot, and mutilated. Another reputed mobster, John Simone, was shot dead. His car was found in Yardley, Bucks County. A month after that, the body of Frank Sindone, allegedly Bruno's loan sharking chief, was found in South Philadelphia. It was less than a month ago that law enforcement officials got in on the act with a sweeping indictment against Testa and 9 of the remaining alleged mobsters.
It could be, but the victim this time was not well known, which seems to make him an unlikely target of either a mob feud or a power play. It has to be stressed that any speculation that this was a mob killing is just speculation. All the police know for sure at this point is that 32-year-old Pietro Incerelli, father of 2, is dead following an execution-style slaying. John Rollins, Channel 6 Action News in Mount Laurel.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.